All right, here we go. Late night happy hour on a Tuesday night. As I said on the air today, just after 3 o'clock, I said yesterday too. Maybe this is a constant with me, but I'm in a mood. We're going to bring in Soren Petro here in a second, but just wanted to play for you a little chopped down version of how I opened the show. Very frustrated. Things are going the wrong way. The dominoes are falling badly for Las Vegas. This is how we started out with Pritch and I, because we had an idea coming in just to set this up. Second half of the year, it's like the second half of a football game. Let's have some fun on Wednesday. Let's make some halftime speeches. And as soon as I walked in the studio, I'm like, well, I ain't doing a halftime speech. It's not going to be nice. You know, yesterday I joked, today is July 1st. We're making halftime speeches. And then I started to write my halftime speech. Hope for the second half of 2020, right?
Right.
I started to write it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, boom, 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 boom. Stories come down. I'm like, we're down 56-0. I cannot come in this locker room and give you a motivational speech about playing better in the second half. I can't do it. The inches. You know what the inches are here? The freaking mask, wherever it is, like 2 feet away. Put it on, you JOs. I'm done being nice. So here's what we have canceled. Minor League Baseball season. Done. So our expensive stadium that we helped build with LVCVA money will now be empty. That's your money, anti-maskers. No minor league baseball season. And even worse than that, all those people who work at LV Ballpark, the people who work in the Aviators organization, you just completely F them by not putting on a mask. Because as you heard in the open, I don't want to be muzzled. I'm an American. You dirtbags just cost all those people their jobs, money. That's a freaking mess. Here we go with the NFL. I'm telling you, if we lose this NFL season because of you out there who for the last 2 months have been whining because you can't wear a piece of cloth on your face, you tough guys, you anti-maskers, oh boy. You want to talk about impact on Las Vegas? Your money, $750 million went into building the Al. If we don't have football, that means we don't have concerts. We don't have college football and NFL football. If this all keeps going this way, you can look in the mirror and go, I just pissed away my own money and I just screwed everyone who works at that stadium, and a lot of the jobs are not locked up yet. We're talking thousands and thousands of jobs. You just took money out of their pockets. And those are bad. Those are really bad. The NHL going bye-bye. I'm going to try to calm down. Losing the opportunity to be a hub is so devastating. And it's not just because it's the NHL. And I'm sure people are like, oh, who cares? It's hockey, not a big deal. Do you realize what it makes us look like here? We've got some hotels in town that are looking at less than 20% occupancy for the next 3 months. You think that's going to get better? One of the major sports leagues just said to Nevada and especially Las Vegas, you ain't safe. You're not safe. My God, people, we've blown it. And I'll take some of the blame, but I put a lot of the blame on you tough guys and gals who wanted to puff out your chest or your boobs and fight and fight and fight. This is what you've delivered. Thank you so much. Thank you for being that selfish. You putzes. Ugh, so gross. All right, Soren. That's how I opened today. It got uglier at times from there. Dude, I'm so pissed off. Like, even listening back to that, I held back so much. Today was one of the hardest shows to do, walking in there and not cussing. Like, I've been on the air going back to college 31 years, right?
Yeah.
And I have never cursed on air. I wanted to say fuck 50 times. I seriously did. Soren, this hockey thing.
Yeah, what do you mean?
So much. You are a Vegas resident. You know people who work here. Like, I'm trying to be nice, trying to be understanding, but like, I know people who are out of work, who may have gone back to work, who are going to lose their jobs again. We're not going to recover from this for a long time, man. I'm telling you, my voice is cracking. I have to like wipe my eyes. I'm I'm not even a hockey guy, but it's just what it represents. And for folks who don't know, Soren does radio in Kansas City. He's on the big radio, 50K watt blower there, WHB. He lived in Vegas. He's a passionate guy. He loves Vegas. And I can only imagine what people in Kansas City, when they look at Vegas, are like, I'm not going there. That looks like a friggin' cesspool.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I got a lot of friends there from my time living there. And, it's always a special place for me. You live there for a few years and, it gets in your blood, right? And I always love Vegas just as, a guest, right, for years. But living there, it's a great town. And I maybe when I'm a little bit older and retire, right, I'll go back there. So it does hurt me. I know so many people in the service industry, and no town, we've talked about it when we've had you on in Kansas City, Steve, no city in America has been hit harder by this than Las Vegas when the entire economy or so much of the economy is based on the service industry. Yeah, I do. I think about you guys all the time. When I hear this news and when I hear Vegas isn't going to get the hockey, and it's so frustrating. And I had a moment like you just had, last Friday, and as the numbers started to climb, and you get excited. And in this industry, obviously, I'm quite proud of our industry as a whole. Anybody that's still doing this, we're 114 days, 113 days, maybe I think, into doing sports talk radio with no sports. Now, I'm not asking for any medals because there's still sports fans and we still have plenty of people out there listening. And there's actually, I've been kind of shocked. It hadn't been as hard as I thought it would be, the topics that we would find, and that the sports world's still there, right? It wasn't evaporated like, the Avengers Endgame or something where they just mystically, went away. But like you had hope. We've been pushing towards this. We've been waiting to get the sports back. We've been looking forward to it. I know us as an industry, but everyone out there who's a sports fan and who's looking for that entertainment. And even if you're not a huge sports fan, if you're a movie fan, the movie industry would like to get back going again, right? Television industry would like to get going again and producing new shows and everything. And here we are, and it's just irresponsibility and childish behavior. There is no machismo to it. I love the way you put it, puffing your chest out or acting like you're a tough guy. You simply have no caring for your fellow man. You have no care of this country. Like, I do not want to hear anybody talk about patriotism, talk about our military, talk about, standing for the flag and then not wear a mask.
Yeah.
America is built on Americans. And if you don't care about your fellow Americans to do what the medical people and the scientists say we need to do, then you're just a child. America is a big baby that needs its ass slapped right now, needs its face slapped right now, and told to grow up and act like a mature adult. And, it starts with our leaders. They've been irresponsible, many of them, for not calling for the things that we need. But it ultimately comes down to us, all right? Mm-hmm. It comes down to us. You know what is right and what is wrong. And you're either choosing what's right or you're finding a reason to simply do what will hurt as many Americans as possible, both medically, health-wise, and financially. And I think everybody in your town, is crushing that city, which needs it more than anybody to get back to quote unquote work.
I mean, shit, we got to a high of 30% unemployment. We've dipped down, headed in the right direction, back to like 24%. That ain't good. It's potentially going to go back up. And here's the thing. I'm tired of it, man. I don't want to talk about it. Like Petro mentioned, 114 days without sports. We have had no trouble doing a show with topic, and topic right. Selection. In fact, we added this show. This is like doing another 3-hour show if you added commercials. We're doing 6 hours a day. But here's the thing. Coming in every day and having to react to just bullshit that's affecting sports, that's what I'm tired of. I'm sure the audience is like, man, these guys do this every day. Yeah. We're tired of it. We just want to freaking move on. It's infuriating and the fighting. And, I want to ask about your area here in a second. We've talked a lot about Vegas and Nevada and Governor Sisolak here, and people, who do you blame? Well, this is every mayor and governor who gave in and opened up early. We have a complicated situation here, Petro, because the casinos rule the day in the end. Right. The governor has tried to be tough, but he's still got to follow what the casinos want to do. And frankly, we opened up. We probably shouldn't be open until after this weekend. We should have been closed all the way through.
That's a bitter pill to swallow. That's a long time to be out of work. So I totally get it. There was a lot of pressure. I wonder what's going on there because you live on the border of two states that are slightly different. I'm guessing one state might be a little more filled with anti-maskers and the, freedoms and don't be a sheep and I'm not going to be a conformist. And then the other state, I'm talking about Missouri, Kansas is probably a little more wise on this. How are you guys dealing with it? It's like we have one state here. You guys are on the border of two and they're different.
And then they're very different. Yeah, the governor of Kansas has been much more proactive in getting things done. She's put out a mandatory mask order. But on the Missouri side, it's a little different and I think a lot of America, for whatever reason right now, I think the cities are more willing to do it, even though you see people who aren't. Kansas City, Missouri's mayor, who's I think been great during this thing and probably has a big future in politics on down the road. He put a mandatory mask order in. He began rolling things back, and I think they have done a better job than the people that don't want to put any restrictions on it. But I do want to be clear, like they talked about it being too early to put things out, but did they really go kicking and screaming into it? I don't want to make this just like, hey, the Republicans dragged it and the Democrats were always there. The Democrats said some of the right things, but they did not go to the mat and say we're absolutely not going to do it. I mean. The governor started opening up Kansas. The mayor of Kansas City, Missouri started opening up Casey Mo. It was too early. You could see it on all the graphs. Anybody who looked at it, that we weren't at the point that other people were. New York maintained it longer, and New York has gone from being the worst spot to one of the most shining stars. And I think it's because I know in this part, what I think it is in Kansas City, a lot of times we're insulated. I consider the nation like a bird, right? And what moves the most on a bird? The tips of its wings, right? Things go way up and way down. There's these huge reactions economically. When the economy's great in New York and LA, man, it's huge. And when it's bad, man, it is bad. And then the body of the bird just kind of moves a little bit. And that's where we are in the middle of America. Our swings are never as big. But what that means is we haven't experienced refrigerator trucks sitting outside of the hospital to hold the dead. Okay. We've got, and I got, Nate Buchanan, who works with me. His wife is working 12-hour shifts in a hospital. He knows. He's pissed. He does our morning show, and he's pissed watching his wife, who's got 3 kids, one of them an infant, and she's going in, putting 12-hour shifts in and working every day right now as the numbers start to go up. It's registering in his house, right? He was already there, but he knows what it is, and he is starting to get pissed because it's putting his wife in harm's way, way more than she needs to be. Another guy at the station, his wife, I think, is a speech therapist, and she's in the hospital and being asked to pitch in and do different things as the numbers start to rise. I think, unfortunately, until you see it come to your doorstep and you see your friends and your family, it just looks like a movie. And I think that's one of the problems we're experiencing here because we didn't get hit as hard the way Italy did, the way New York did. And I fear that that's what it's going to take. We're starting to see some shift right now. We're starting to see some political talking heads start to move in that direction. Some of the politicians move in that direction. But, I don't like saying it's too late because that empowers the people to keep doing what they're doing. Well, if it's too late anyway, I'm going to keep doing what it is. It's not too late. You need to get a mask on your ass or on your face and get going. But the bottom line is so much time has been squandered. So much money is going to be lost by everybody out there. I've taken a pay cut. I'm tired of taking a pay cut, right? I need healthy businesses advertising. We have a really good lineup, a really good radio station. There's no reason for our ad sales to be way down, but they are because businesses are losing money right and left. And we could actually control that and be getting back to where New Zealand has full stadiums for rugby, full stadiums because they've gotten the virus down to where they have 4 cases. Okay. And they're playing sports in other countries. We would have those things. We could be getting our economy going. You can't have a vibrant economy unless you have healthy people. And if you're not going to get healthy, the economy is always going to suffer. And you just can't have the dumbest people in the room making the decisions for everybody. You've got to be intelligent about it. And really, you don't even have to be that smart. It's so obvious right now.
Yep. Just to say hi to a lot of people who've commented already. Brady's in here. Jello Man, I got your comments about bars. We're definitely going to talk about bars later on. Left Coast Mike.
To the bars.
Yeah, there we go. He was saying keep it together. I'm trying. This is the most dangerous part. I can only do these rants a couple times a day because I am going to die. That's my other concern is my blood pressure and cholesterol. I'm beyond fat, and I'm just getting worked up every day. Ray, yeah, the NHL thing, and I'm Soren knows, and everyone who listens knows. I'm not like some giant hockey fan, but it was going to be a great thing.
You're a Vegas fan, Steve. You're a Vegas fan, and you know what the Knights mean for Vegas. You know what having that tournament there would mean, and all of that, should be there. Everything like that should be going on right now. And had the leadership done what they did, and had we as individuals done what we needed to do, it would be there.
And to your point about,
you think I want to go to Arrowhead Stadium and have the whole place smell like a one big barbecue and roll in for the ring ceremony on a Thursday night? Think about it. 50 years Kansas City waited for a championship, and there's going to be nobody at the stadium to see the team get its rings.
Yeah, what a freaking disaster. And we'll stop doing the doom and gloom with the radio business, although I will close out at the end with some interesting stuff. We can reminisce a bit. But, last week, because advertising is down, because everything is interconnected in this world. If you want to be a fuck up and push back on everything, all of us get affected by it. But, we had 6 people fired last week, a bunch of on-air people. We had 3 on-air veterans of 20-plus years lose their jobs. You know how devastating that is when you're like 45, 50, 55? And we could easily be next in the next couple of months if football goes bye-bye. I want to talk football, though. I know it's a weird transition, but I brought Petro on because he's great at sports talk, and really everyone who's on this on a normal basis is great at sports talk. But I wanted to talk some Raiders and Chiefs, and then we'll get back to some of the other stuff, bars and
real quick before we leave that topic, thank you for saying what you said. And you know what? That's one of the things, and you're one of the guys who empowered me. I try to stay away. We've talked about this before the last time I was on. I try to stay away from the political subjects because listen, everybody, they got enough of that everywhere. And I consider myself the place where people can go and get away from it. But when you get to a point that a group of people are just shitbagging the entire economy and, they're selfishly, carrying around, the ability to just tank all of us, you finally have to say something. And I'm glad you did, because we empower people who are sitting there going, geez, I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm not kidding you. Like, I had somebody came up to, we won't get going again. It needs to be said. More people need to say it.
I want you to go down that path for a second, because I don't know if I hope you got what I was saying. This is a very random reference inside radio, because it was a radio spot where Petro had me on. And I said at the end of a spot about a month ago, I was like, dude, I really admire what you're doing, because this is not what you do on Twitter. And I saw you posting stuff, kind of, you were getting revved up, like, cut it out, wear the mask, and people were going at you. I was like, good for you, man, because those are hard paths to take, because it is really risky in radio. And I'll give you a good example. I don't know what someone came up to you and said, but one thing that I've had multiple people come up to me saying, I've like held my tongue, bit my lip, but I'm done. I've had people come up to me and go, do you know anyone who has it? Okay, what the fuck does that mean? Are you saying it's a hoax? Because now you're starting to, it's like, yeah, I can give you a list of people who have it. I'm aware of people that have died. Listen, okay, it's real. Don't come up to me like that. I had someone the other day come up to me, Petro, and they're like, well, I mean, we just got to open things up, man. Might have to thin out the herd. And I look at the person, I'm like, you're gonna die. You're part of the freaking weak herd. What do you mean thin out the herd? What sort of monster says that?
Yeah, no, and yes, I do. I've got a friend, very close friend, whose sister is on a ventilator right now in Kansas City, and I think those are the stories. This has been upfront for me, because I've got friends in New York, and I know what they've been going through. Our buddy's sister was working in New York City hospitals all during that time and pulling the extra shifts. So yes, I do know people, and I've got people in Kansas City that are now testing positive, and the numbers are spiking here. Now we're starting at a very low point, but they're going up. And yeah, absolutely. And listen, and if you don't, then you need to look in the mirror, because you don't have any friends, jackass. If you don't, listen, you're as big a dick as I think you are, because how can you not know somebody who hasn't been affected by this?
You're very lucky.
You're not lucky. You're not lucky. You're a dick. You have no friends.
Or you don't care about your parents, because I know your mom's advanced age. My parents, New Jersey's going down, but they're right in the belly of the beast. They live in a senior community. They could catch it and be dead in 2 weeks. So oh, it's fake. Don't worry about it. All right. Well, you live that way. I'm going to show a little care for my family and other people around me that I know. So it's funny. It's like Petro was in the studio the other day. We got into this conversation about copycats around the National Football League, right? And if Cam Newton works in New England halfway through the season, right, on the heels of Josh Allen, who essentially is white Cam, and Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson, right, and all these dudes who are now dual threats, get outside, test the defense. Will the Raiders look at Derek Carr if they're not off to a good start and go, you know what, we paid Mariota for a reason. We're getting more athletic. We're going to start moving outside, challenging the defense more. What do you think is going to happen? We'll get to Cam and the numbers, but the Raiders signed Mariota for a reason.
Yeah, and the money they gave him, I mean, you can see what the Cowboys gave Andy Dalton. You can even see what the Patriots gave Cam Newton. The Raiders didn't pay that kind of money for Marcus Mariota. And listen, you can say Mike Mayock and John Gruden missed the market by jumping on Mariota and paying him that. And had they waited it out, they could have got Cam Newton. And you might be right. Listen, everybody and the market's really changed. Don't kid yourself. Cam Newton cost himself probably a lot of money. I'll bet there were bigger offers earlier that he could have taken. But when you've got a situation where the NFL now finally, it's coming to roost when they cut 2 preseason games, they're finally starting to recognize and feel it. Now, we've had a number of different Zoom calls with the Chiefs, and I asked, Travis Kelce about does he fear for his health, and he started talking to me about, if we don't have OTAs and mini camps and, we might have more ligament problems. I'm like, no, I'm talking about the virus. Like the virus wasn't even on his mind. And I asked Mitchell Schwartz a week later, I said, like, has the NFLPA been talking to you guys about what the plan is and what the medical plans are? He's like, no, we haven't really had those talks. They've had nothing but time. And it's just like the NBA. They sign their deal. And even after they sign the deal for a month, they just sit around, pussyfooting around. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, Jesus, I got to go down there. I mean, like, what are we doing? Like, what do you mean, what are we doing? You signed the deal a month ago, right? You've been negotiating about it. And now the baseball players, oh, my God, I don't know about this. Like, what is like, it's not real till you actually have to subject yourself to it. So tell the healthcare professionals, the grocery store workers, right? Everybody who's on the front line that has been living with it every day, the initial fear, and now learning more and watching the numbers go up and fearing for them. And now we're going to listen to these guys cry. I mean, come on. But so I do think that marketplace probably affected the money that Cam Newton got. And so the Raiders may have been bitten by it. I know the Chiefs have been bitten by it because they got 0 offers at the draft for Chris Jones, right? 0 offers for Chris Jones. No one has called about one of the best defensive tackles out there. So the Raiders didn't give that money. I think they gave more than they probably had to, a lot more when you see what's happened with the virus. But they have a plan for the guy. And to me, I talked about it today or a couple of days ago with Tim Grunhard, one of our football insiders, used to play for the Chiefs for a decade. I said, this is a younger Rich Gannon. I mean, that's what John Gruden is seeing in his head. Now, he's got to play like Rich Gannon. But Rich Gannon was a guy who didn't have the same pedigree, got to John Gruden and the Raiders and became an MVP. And he did it because he could move around in the pocket, he could shuffle his feet, and he could run and extend series, right? If you 3rd and 6 and you send guys out and you run for 8, hey, it's a new set of downs. You get deeper into the playbook. So Marcus Mariota was there to motivate Derek Carr, but I think more so to replace Derek Carr if he proves that he can do it. Yeah. And I think it is where you have to go. I think, look, every defensive coordinator, first thing they ask themselves when they sit down for a team, is the quarterback a threat to run? It's the first thing you have to do when tailoring any defensive game plan. Is the quarterback a threat to run? If he's not, it gets a lot easier, right? It gets a lot easier. Now, if he's not and he's Peyton Manning or Tom Brady at the peak of their powers, you have other problems and challenges. But it is a serious strain on a defense if the quarterback is mobile and can run. And, Derek Carr is not this far into his career, and there's an MVP season about ready to happen. And either John Gruden is a coach that's being held back by Derek Carr, or John Gruden can't see what a real quarterback is. We talked about it. I think Marcus Mariota, the idea is he's our Alex Smith, right? That's where the Raiders are in their development. We need a guy who can come in and extend drives with his legs and put pressure on the defense with some option plays, some draws, where we can get some easy first downs and not have to burn through the entire gotcha. I call them gotcha plays in the playbook, which there's only 10 or 12 of them, all through the first half just to stay in the game. You need to be able to hold 5 or 6 of those back. And if Mariota or any quarterback can run for a first down, you hold those in reserve and you can drop them in the fourth quarter when it's the drive you got to have to win the game. I think Derek Carr is just a guy, right, at quarterback. and he's just a guy who's getting a big check, that's even the worst thing. And that's where you look at the Patriots and they get it. I think Cam Newton's just a guy now, but he's at least a guy that may present a running threat if his foot works, if his shoulder works. But they got a collection of Jags that cost $5 million against the cap. So they've got an ability to start putting some talent around the quarterback, which is what you've got to do if you don't have a franchise guy.
Yeah. I think Derek Carr is going to get half the season. He's got to take the next step. They gave him weapons. If he doesn't go deep, I think they're going to lose it. Like, we're giving you guys a stretch the field. You got to do it. He'll get half the season, and then they will turn it over to Mariota. That's why Mariota has a 2-year deal. Mariota will be a bridge guy, and if they don't like Mariota, then they'll be drafting someone next year or trading for someone else. But, time is up, and a lot of it is financial. If you can have Mariota play about the same level for $15 million less, then you move on from Derek Carr. And I'll give you the other thing that's an issue. The other issue with Derek Carr is his personality and his spot in the locker room, and if guys believe in him. And he's got this weird propensity. Man, he can be thin-skinned. And you hear him after a lot of games, even losses, he's quoting his completion percentage. You're like, dude, who cares? Who cares? And there's already been a couple of stories behind the scenes here around Vegas, like little things that have happened in the media where he's been criticized, and all of a sudden the agent's calling someone up, and you're like, dude, you're way too old for this. You got to get past this. And in the locker room, they know their quarterback. They know who the quarterback is. They know his personality. They know if they want to follow him.
Alex Smith was a guy they wanted to follow, right? I mean, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but Alex Smith was a guy who had the respect of his teammates because of his work in the weight room, his work in the offseason, his knowledge of the playbook, and he was a quality human being, right? So they went to war for Alex Smith, and you got everything out of Alex Smith that you could get. And you could win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith. You were going to need a lights-out defense. You were going to need a lot of weapons around him. But he was a guy that had that respect in the locker room. Patrick Mahomes is a guy that does everything as a quarterback, right? Pretty good runner, very good scrambler, right? Scramble to throw type of guy, not scramble to run for 30 yards. But he's athletic enough to be able to, show an option play here or there to keep the defensive end honest on some certain downs and everything, and run on when nothing's there. He can, run for the first down and extend the drive. He can do those things. But in the locker room, he's the ultimate. Like, he's even Alex Smith plus because he has the work ethic, first one in, last one out, knows the offense, right? Can physically ball. If you can't ball out, you lose the respect. He can do that. And he's also got a little bit of he's a wild man, one of the guys, right? There's a little bit of, and listen, it's going to keep his career. He's not going to play 20 years. He's already had a dislocated kneecap, and he's willing to throw his body around, and that's a problem. And he's got to start to learn the Peyton Manning turtle because he's too valuable throwing the ball as opposed to taking these hits. But that does generate some swagger. And at least until you've won a Super Bowl, showing that you'll go out there and put a shoulder down to get that first down, that's big. And Patrick Mahomes is that guy. And now he's got the ring and the MVP and the Super Bowl MVP. I think now it's on the rest of the guys to be like, Patrick, stop doing that crap, right? But he's the leader, and he can do it all. And if you can't do it all, you at least need to be the leader, and you need to have things that you can do. And Derek Carr, to this point, listen, he is what he is. At some point, you are what the back of your baseball card says, right? That's an adage in baseball. You're not 6,000, 7,000 at bats, and suddenly, you're going to have a breakout moment. You are what the back of your football card says you are. Derek Carr is what he is. He's not terrible, but he's not great. He clearly doesn't inspire his team, or there'd be some wins, and there just aren't enough wins on his resume.
What about Robert's point? Should we give up on Mariota? What are you seeing? And then Sean was saying that just reading up stuff on Titans defensive players raving about Mariota in practice, He could be something. So why shouldn't we give up on Mariota based on what we've seen? First
of all, to Sean, nobody kicks more ass in a practice than the backup quarterback. He listen, in college,
Jared
scout team. Yeah, so take that with a grain of salt, because the scout team quarterback is, oh my God, you ought to see him. He's just ripping everything. Oh, calm down. All right, just take a pill, Skippy. But I do think Mariota, yes, is absolutely the guy you want to take a shot on. I pounded on the desk for a number of years about go give Alex Smith a try. Right? He was a 1-1 for a reason, Bring him in with a quality offensive mind and see if you can fix it. We've seen it. We've seen it with Rich Gannon. We've seen it with Jim Plunkett, right? Len Dawson for the Chiefs was a guy who bounced from the Steelers to the Browns and was considered a nothing. Got to the Chiefs, got with Hank Stram, who was a great offensive mind, who taught, played the rhythm short passing game, really even before Bill Walsh, and turned Len Dawson into a Hall of Famer. There are a lot of guys that it didn't work at the first stop because they had a bad situation or they were immature or they're just slow to come around in the learning process, that you give them another shot and they can make it happen. There is a lot of tools in Marcus Mariota. They've got to build up his confidence. You can do that by loving him up, but you can also do that by calling plays and giving him the offense that he's comfortable with. And Nick Foles is one of those guys. Listen, Nick Foles is a guy who didn't think he wanted to play football when the Chiefs called him. And they said, hey, come on back. He was so crushed by being with that screw house that Jeff Fisher had going on with the Rams, and just crushed him mentally, that they had to talk him into coming back to be in the backup for Alex Smith. He got on the field. He won his only start. He won the other game that he replaced Alex Smith when he got hurt. And then he goes on to the Philadelphia Eagles, and we saw what he did there. And Doug Peterson knew, I've got to give him what it is he's comfortable with. And I think if you do that with Marcus Mariota and you understand his limitations, right? Is Marcus Mariota going to come in and be your franchise quarterback? He's not. He's not going to be your Patrick Mahomes. But can Marcus Mariota come in and be your Alex Smith? I think there's a distinct possibility that he can do it because physically he has not been wrecked the way I think Cam Newton has been wrecked. And I don't think he's ever been with a bright offensive mind. And I'd like to believe that John Gruden is still that. They've got weapons. Give him the packages that he likes, that he can do. Give him some confidence moving the chains with some easy runs. And, yeah, I think Marcus Mariota is the starting quarterback of the Raiders by midseason at the very latest. In fact, I'll be disappointed if it doesn't happen by week 4. I think it's the plan, and Derek Carr's got to come out lights out, or I think you see Mariota very early.
Yeah, Brady says they could start out the season 1-4. Raiders start out with a game at Panthers, home Saints, at Cam and the Patriots, home Bills,
how about this?
Chiefs, home Buccaneers.
How about this? How about start his ass in week 1, right? Like, Bill Belichick actually, if you read the books, and maybe this is, revisionist history, was kicking around the idea of going with Brady out of the gates. And they stayed with Bledsoe when he got hurt, and they turned it over to Brady, and they stayed the course. Listen, you're in the get-it-right business, okay? And if you are sitting there thinking Derek Carr might be the guy to win multiple championships for us, he might be a franchise quarterback, then you're a dumbass and you should be fired, okay? We can see that. Derek Carr is a guy who should be making $6 or $7 million and is Mr. Right now or Mr. Backup, but he is not Mr. Right. Okay, so you move on from that. If Marcus Mariota is showing signs, you give him the job. Let him win it out. I mean, Mariota lost the job to Tannehill right away, but they clearly wanted to go that direction ultimately, and so put him in there, and I love it. Yeah, if not him, then who, right? Well, you've got who. The who is Mariota. If not Derek Carr, then who? The who is Mariota. And listen, if it doesn't work, I know what the fear is. Well, we think we can play it safe with Derek Carr, get to 10-6, and get into the postseason, right? And we need to get that. We need to get a playoff season under our belt. You got a 10-year contract. You got year 1 in Vegas. You got a season that may go down the shitter 4 weeks in because of a virus. What do you have to lose? Get on with it. Get to where you think you might have some ceiling left.
So there's no drama yet. That's on the horizon. Is there drama in Kansas City with Chris Jones? And I think there's a good discussion to be had here. Well, are they going to pay him big money? What's he doing? And what is an inside lineman on D worth?
And that's, I had that conversation with George Sharuri from Pro Football Focus today. And I said, listen, I don't think the defensive tackle is the running back of the defense, right? We've all learned from all these big running back contracts that that's just not smart money. Even if they're great, they're probably going to get hurt. And fine, if you have Walter Payton, and you piled all this money into him, you got lucky. That wasn't a smart move. Reality is you should never be on a second contract with a running back. Turn him and burn him, right? That's what that position is. I don't think the D tackle's there. I don't know if there's that position. The closest thing is a linebacker who's got to come out on passing downs, right? Those guys are a dime a dozen. All right, if you can't cover in the NFL linebacker, that's it. But next might be D tackle. And Chris Jones is one of the best, but there's such a gap. I've heard people say, he's the second best D tackle to Aaron Donald. Well, that's great. If you're the second tallest pygmy and you're 3'4", and the tallest one's 6 feet tall, like, who gives a shit? Because everybody else is 3'3". Like, you can't see over their heads anyway, jackass. So to me, that's where Chris Jones is. He's in that second tier of guys, and he's about the same, but he's asking for Aaron Donald money. He turned down 6 for 102 and 40 million guaranteed before 2019. And I really get offended. Listen, I generally will always side with the players against owners and revenue talks. But when the player comes out and says he's insulted by getting the franchise tag, after he's turned down 40 million guaranteed, $17 million a year average on a 6-year deal, and by putting the franchise tag on, they're going to pay him the average of the top 5 guys at his position, and he's insulted. Fuck you. Like, I don't need to hear that. Like, that's ridiculous. So Jones, to me, is a guy that is a very good player. And are the Chiefs better today with him than without him? Yes, they are. But are they better with him in 21, 22, 23, 24, making Aaron Donald money than they would be spending that money on multiple players? No, they're not. And that's where Brett Veach needs to override Andy Reid, because I'm sure Andy Reid is all about, this is what we need to win now. Brett Veach has to look at years 2, 3, 4, 5, and the Chiefs do not need to have that kind of contract weighing them down. And I will tell you, go back and look at the New England Patriots contracts. They spent on Brady more than people realize, but they always did it smart, tearing up the deal, renegotiating it, giving him a big signing bonus, keeping the number down, tearing that deal up before it got to the end. But they gave him and a pitch and catch guy and Gronk. So get your quarterback and get a top shelf, number 1 target, and then they'll spend on a couple of coverage guys. Stephen Gilmore right now, before that, Aqib Talib, Darrelle Revis. They've always got a cover guy, and they've spent on McCourty. Otherwise, they never have the highest paid guy, not even remotely close to the highest paid guy at any position, because to have that guy means you're sucking too much oxygen out of the room at too many other positions.
Sean was asking, what do you think about Clowney, who at this point is going to get nothing when he signs?
Yeah, that's one. I posed the thought here in Kansas City. Like, listen, you got $16 million that you've socked away for Chris Jones anyway. If Clowney will take 1 for 16, would you pull the tag on Chris Jones, who says he's not going to play? That was his big tweet last night. Was I'm not coming in. If I don't get the multi-year deal, I'm not coming in. And I think he means it. And this has been what I've been telling people since he started chirping back in February is, listen, you need to trade him. Now, COVID sucked the trade market away, so that's not an option. So to me, the Chiefs have no choice now. They've played their hand, and they've got to go in and say, okay, he plays for 16, or we have a $16 million hole, and we can sit there with a straight face and be like, hey, who knew we weren't going to have any trade options? And we offered him a good contract. He said no, and $16 million isn't chicken feed. If he doesn't want to play, he doesn't want to play. And he probably comes back for the last 5 or 6 weeks to make sure he accrues the year of service time. And why would you give him the money when you may only have a 4 or 5 or 6 game season anyway? Why would you lock into a multi-year deal not knowing what the salary cap is going to be? If I were the Chiefs, the smartest thing they could do, keep the franchise tag on him, pull any multi-year offer off the table that he's got, and tell him you're playing for $16 million. And I would definitely march Jadeveon Clowney right in the front door to be very public that I'm talking to him, to put some heat on Chris Jones and his staff. And I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting. You got to know the agents when you watch these deals. And the Katz brothers are the agents for Chris Jones, and they are basically the Jerry Maguire brothers. They're a breakaway from Drew Rosenhaus, and Rod Tidwell is Chris Jones. And they got to make hay with Chris Jones. Yeah. They're trying to make a big splash to make their name, to start trying to get other big clients. And that's at work here too. That's another force that's at work here. I think Chris Jones' feelings are hurt now. They shouldn't be, but they are. And that's part of the dynamics of, we can sit here as fans and say, just sign him or just trade him. It's not that easy. And the Chiefs are experiencing it right now.
Yep. Scream and show me the money. Tell me I'm crazy on this one. This has been especially on our show, because everyone on the show freaking loves the guy. I brought up this example many times. Let's play the game. Regular, 16 game season, but the coronavirus positive test all over the place, right? Quarterbacks may be out. You got to have a good quarterback. I keep pointing to the Chiefs, and I'm like, Chad Henne for a championship team. If you got money, why can't the Chiefs go, you know what? 2 years, $8 million, maybe some incentives. Here you go, Kaepernick. Let's get a real backup in there who can listen. He's not Pat Mahomes, but some similar skills. You don't have to blow up the freaking offense. Why couldn't they do that?
I've always felt that Andy Reid was the perfect guy to sign Colin Kaepernick. He wasn't the perfect situation when he had Alex Smith. The guy Kaepernick took his job, right? Can you imagine that dynamic? So as long as Alex Smith was here and making big money, you can see why that wasn't going to happen. First year as a starter for Patrick Mahomes, you don't want him looking over his shoulder, right? You felt confident he was going to be good. You didn't know how good he was going to be, so you stay away. And then you get to now, and there's no excuse. There is no excuse because Mahomes is the guy. The only excuse would be if Colin Kaepernick will only sign to be the starter, right? Cam Newton's not in New England because Bill Belichick's there. He's there because, yeah, they're a good team, but he's got a legitimate shot to be the starter. Right. And that's one of the reasons why you're not going to be the starter in Kansas City. So I don't know if he'd come. But to your point about Chad Henne as the backup, there's a great line and telling the story. Ron Jaworski, when he was doing Monday Night Football, went to a Colts practice. He's standing on the sideline next to Tom Moore, who's watching Peyton Manning. And Jaworski realizes that Peyton Manning is taking every single rep, right? Every single rep in practice. And Jaworski says to Tom Moore, a legendary offensive coordinator, he says, Tom, you don't get any reps for the backups? What are you going to do? He goes, listen, Ron, if 18 goes down, we're fucked. And we don't practice fucked.
Yeah.
Right? I love it. We don't practice fucked. That's as real as it gets. And I think when you're quote unquote running it back, as the Chiefs have said, they're all in to try to win another championship. And they can get by. They know if they got to go to war with Chad Henne, maybe they can steal a playoff game. They're not winning 3 playoff games in a row. That's just reality. They know that they can get by for a little bit. And they're all in on Patrick Mahomes and giving him every weapon he can to try to win this second Super Bowl. Now, I think in years to come, you're going to see them invest in a young quarterback. You're going to see them invest in a better backup quarterback in years that they've got the cap room. But they are all in about this year. And that's going to be one of the reasons why Patrick Mahomes can't be Mr. Hero for dropping a shoulder trying to bulldoze guys when he takes off on the run.
So I'm going to ask Petro a question here about
But why not Kaepernick with the Raiders?
Because I think they already spent it on their 2 guys for now. If they had an opening, if they had if they needed a backup, again, like you said, is he gonna come in and try to be part of a 3-guy mix? I'm not even sure that he wants to play for 2 years and $8 million. I don't know the whole deal. I just know I don't want a terrible backup or a shaky backup if I've got real hopes of winning a championship. And we didn't mention the coronavirus part. Like, hey, Pat Mahomes, don't be reckless, but what if he catches it and then he's out 3 weeks?
Yeah. And as we know, when jackasses don't wear masks, you can be really safe and still end up with it. So listen, I think the Chiefs would love to have a more experienced backup or to have a young stud that they can think they can showcase in the preseason. Or he comes in for a couple of games and fills in for Mahomes, and then they can spin him for a couple of picks. Andy Reid did that already 3 or 4 times with the Eagles. Did it with Kevin Kolb. Did it with AJ Feely. And spun those guys for real returns. And so I think that's a direction they will go. But right now they just don't have the resources.
Hey, if it's still Nate Peterman, if it's freaking Glennon. Guys like that who are backing up Carr, then 100% we'd be screaming from the hills for Kaepernick to get signed. So I wanted to ask Petro what the rules are for bars in Kansas and Missouri. And I also wanted to ask everyone in the chat, have you guys gone out in Vegas? If you're a Vegas listener, have you gone out to bars? Because I'm going to tell my story about bars and what I've seen. I know a lot of people are flipping out in Texas and Florida and Arizona now because bars are closed down. They're using the boorish hashtag bar lives matter, which is really stupid. What's the deal? Do you guys have restrictions on bars there? Are they open?
They are. There are different restrictions. I can just tell you for me, I have not been to a bar. I have not been to a restaurant, and I will not be in a bar or a restaurant until the virus is contained in some way, whether it's therapeutics that turn it into the cold or it's a vaccine that we can feel comfortable that we've got a really good shot that we're not even going to get it. And that pains me because I've got friends that own bars, right? I lots of friends that own bars, right? You do sports talk shows, you do a lot of shows from bars, and they're great people. And I'm buying takeout, right? I'm going and trying to support them and buying takeout. And when you go and buy the takeout, by the way, don't be a cheap ass on the tip, right? Give a real freaking tip, right? Because it sucks for them out there. So give at least 20% on a tip. But for me, I'm not going because I listen. You mentioned I got a mom I got to look out for. I got my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law I got to look out for. I got a family and I got to do the job, right? If I can't do the job, like it gets easier for somebody to move on. So I'm doing everything I can to be safe. I get it that people want to get out there, but when I hear that you're 19 times more likely to get it inside, than you are outside, like, to me, I'm just not going to risk that. And I think it absolutely sucks for the bars. And I think one of the things that the government could do a better job of is targeting the people that just can't do their business if we're to be smart, right? Like handing out money to businesses that can fully function with everybody working at home. That's bullshit.
Yep.
You know, bars and restaurants need to be taken care of at a higher rate than other businesses. Like, this is where I sit and do my show. I am fine here doing my show. Now, we've got our problems as we stated, but our business can run. But bars just can't even run, particularly if we all end up shutting everything down. So yeah, I think it's incredibly scary. I do have great compassion for the bar owners that are losing their livelihoods, like I do everyone in this country that is losing their livelihood right now. But like, going inside and congregating is bad news. And, you know, Dr. Fauci said it the other day. He's like, I wouldn't recommend it. And listen, I would rather everybody have to shut down and feel the pain for 6 months than to feel the pain for 6 years, or feel the pain for 6 weeks as opposed to 6 months, if we can get it under control.
Right. So another one of our viewers says niece has to go get tested, or he has to go get tested tomorrow. Our buddy
my friend's daughter, my daughter's friend was tested just this week, because a camp that her brother went to, you know, had a positive test, and so she was exposed to her brother, who was exposed to that person, and she had to go get it. I'm not shitting you. If you don't know someone, like, you need to look in the mirror and see, like, are you just a dick and you have no friends?
Let's get some of the reaction. So Sean, one of our loyal listeners and viewers, says no bars, no restaurants here. Iron Chef Sean has been turning out the hits. All right, Sean, answer this one. Why not? Why not? A lot of the same reasons that Petro mentioned, and Petro's got kids. And listen, I'm in a different position. I'll tell you my experiences here in a second. Who else had something? Oh, Robert went to a totally local bar. Everyone had a mask on. Okay, that's not what I've seen so far at local bars. Went to a trendy bar. What trendy? But what? Bourbon Street's a trendy bar? You got to follow up on that one. Bourbon Street, if you don't know, Petro is
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's a new chain. Well, we have slot halls that have taken over. So it's
right.
Dottie's and Jackpot Jonies, and they've taken over the town. So the guy who owns Dottie's, the company, they're like, you know what? Let's do a sports bar theme, but it's all cash. It's all cash, and but dude, it is. They have arcade games in there. It is one of the best sports bar, like big screen TV setup I've ever seen. And there's like 8 of them. There's no one ever there watching the big screen TVs. It's like you walk into a living room and all of a sudden you've got like a 40-foot wall of TVs. And like I said, with the all cash, I look around and I'm like, what's going on here? But anyway, that's Bourbon Street, unless he knows about a different Bourbon Street.
And it's all cash?
It's all cash.
Have you seen the show Ozark?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's why you got what I was doing.
You see Marty walking around?
Marty, it's not Marty who owns it, but this is a Marty type business. Okay. Let's see. Sean said, just concerned about safety with how operators are conducting businesses and concerns over patrons. Yeah. Truth from Duluth said, just being an effing recluse. Natural social distancing.
By the way, I love how you say the word 7 times and then you read a guy who writes it and you abbreviate it to F.
I do it all the time because I'm in the habit of, sometimes I slip back into the afternoon show. All right, so here's the deal.
By the way, I love that. That is fantastic.
I don't want to smear bars because I like bars. Bars are my life, and like you said, I know so many bartenders and servers and freaking. I love bars. The SO and I are hitting bars all the time. Here's my experience. One, when I go to a bar since the shutdown, I have no self-control, right? And I know I'm probably like a lot of people in the bar. Like 2 Saturdays ago, and this is also why when you hear me rant about masks, like I have had slip-ups, so I am human, right? I was going to say on the air today, if you see me in a grocery store or a retail store and you recognize me and I don't have a mask on, you have permission to punch me right in the fucking face, all right? Because I deserve it. And I probably deserve it at a bar, because here's the thing, Petro. Everyone, we go into these bars. First bar
Can I come to Vegas? Because there's been many a night, as you know.
Yes.
That I wanted to be that guy punching you in the fucking face.
The first bar I went to, I was like, I'm all amped up. I didn't want to go. I walk in. There was 37 people there, including myself. One person had a mask on. Me. And then I was like, okay, I am gonna disprove the theory that, well, if you're drinking, you can't wear a mask. So I would be like, half the bottle, put the mask on.
Right.
Wait like 3 minutes, look around. And I made myself like really self-conscious, like everyone's looking at me. Everyone's looking at me. And that, like, I think that's part of the psyche when people go into bars. They're like, I don't want to, I don't want to be bullied. I don't want to look like a dickhead. But I did that for a while. And then finally I was like, this sucks. I gave up. And I'm like, I'll just catch it. And then the other times I've gone, I went 2 Saturdays to a couple of bars, and the end of the night at the second bar, I don't know what happened. Like, I was just out.
And so
my
you didn't have a mask?
No, we didn't. We sat at the bar. It was a group of 4 of us. Now I will say, no one came near us. It was just our group, but still, it's open air. You're in a bar. I completely violated everything I've talked about. I was irresponsible, but I was also getting sauced, and all of a sudden, and it was like one of those, like, I just haven't been out that much, so I was like, oh yeah, this drink, that drink, shot. Like, I don't do shots. And by the end of the night, my girlfriend's like, I don't even know what language you're speaking. She was like tending to another friend who was lying on the ground outside. My girlfriend walked up to the car. She's like, you are all buckled in the car. And you're like, let's go. And she's like, get out of the seat. And then I'm trying to give her directions home. I can't speak English. So like, I understand. Like, I love bars and I'm flawed, but the reason I'm telling these stories, 1, full disclosure, I'm not perfect, but 2, when people go to bars and they're getting more and more liquored up, do you think they're getting safer as the night goes along?
No,
they're not. They're not.
No, and that's why. And you asked what they're doing here, and they're starting it. They're announcing it all across that they're going to start. They're going to close them for the weekend because we saw what happened. The Ozarks, where the show The Ozarks happened, takes place, and back on was it Memorial Day weekend? Whichever one's first. I always forget which one's first. Memorial Day weekend. You saw the big pool party. That was all over the news.
There you go.
And
Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to shut down. But here around town, there was similar behavior. It's like, hey, 3-day weekend, I'm going to go out. I'm gonna have a good time. And listen, when you're drinking, you don't have the best judgment. And so I think reality is, the government's got to look out for what's best for most people and say, on this weekend, where there's going to be a lot of people that are like, dude, and I get why people want to go out. And listen, there is going to be a fucking rager at my house like there is nobody's business when this thing is over. Like, I am tired of sweating my tits off, sitting outside on a hot night with a friend, because that's all I do. I'll sit outside. So we're all, 2 or 3 friends. And you know me, I like to get like 10, 12. When you guys come in for the baseball league, I'll get 10, 12, 15 guys together a couple of times during the weekend. And I love that. Like, that's great times. And I miss that. But like, I'll just get a couple of guys, 2, 3, 4 guys, whoever can sit around the fire pit outside. And like, sometimes like, it's God damn, it's hot. I'd so much rather be inside, but this is what I got to do. So listen, I am ready to cut loose. I get it. I get it. If you're like, I got to bust out, I got to do something. I get that mindset. I think you need to try to get it out of your head. And I've always been a rule follower, right? Like, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I've said I'm not going there, so I'm not going to go there. But I totally get that mindset. But you have to try not to do it. I mean, listen, go buy. They're letting, I don't know, out there, can you buy packaged beer, wine, and spirits at bars now? Because we can do that. That's one of the things they did. You can be like, give me a burger and a 12-pack and do that as carry out. That's a way to support your local bars.
Yeah, it's an old license. And I know for a while they were doing takeout drinks. They cut that off. But there are certain places that have licenses that can do packaged liquor.
But see, that's something that they need to do there.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, we're suspending that law and everybody can sell packaged drinks and give the bars a fighting chance to be like, listen, we know you can't come here and hang out or shouldn't come here and hang out, but you can grab your drinks, take them home when you grab your food, and we got your back. And I know it sucks for the liquor stores, but like, trust me, we're all taking a bite of the shit sandwich, man. And I say this all the time. In life, if you have a job, everybody takes a bite of the shit sandwich, man. It's just how much sauce do they give you and how big a bite do they make you take. And right now, there ain't no sauce and it's a big fucking bite.
I think one of your listeners is saying, I never heard Petro drop F and S bombs. This is awesome. Priceless. Let me tell you. Soren can cuss with the best of them. When Soren and I are together.
And this is my first beer. It's not the beer talking. It's just what the show is. So I'm rolling with the punches.
Here's McKinnell's Ryan McKinnell, our buddies checking in. Yep. Shit sandwiches for everyone.
Ryan
knows about tasting the shit sandwiches. You got to sauce it up. He knows.
Dude, I'm lucky, man. My company, not a very big bite. I get a lot of sauce. Okay. Yeah. But there are days I still got to eat some shit, man. I mean, that's just life.
Yeah, I probably said too much about my bar experiences, but
I think you did, because I want to punch you in the face. Yeah, and if I see you in a bar here, I'll punch you in the face.
Dude, I've had 5 or 6 of those experiences where I'm like, what a scumbag I am. You know, you just feel really guilty about it. It's weird going to a bar is, you know, makes you feel bad. And then like the last one I went to, just to mention, the thing is when you go into a group like that, everyone's having a good time, and then I sat down, and I actually sat down away, or, you know, sat in a chair away from everyone. We're kind of congregated in an area, and I was like 6 feet apart. They're like, what are you trying to distance? I'm like, yes. But that's what happens in the bars. Like then you start feeling the pressure, and then you lose your way. It's just, you got to have self-control. And maybe for me, just don't go. How about that? Don't go.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is for me, because I'd be right there with you. I get going, start having a good time, and I would lose it. And I don't want to do that. Like for me, what it is, like, number one, I feel like listen, I'm probably going to be okay, but I'm a fat ass, right? That's not good for
I didn't mean to confirm that. Like I was like, yep.
If you were wondering, you know, out there, I know the beard hides it in the black shirt. You're like, what's Petro go? 140, 145? Turns out no. You can add 100 pounds to that. But you know, like my feeling is I don't want to get somebody else sick. Like I don't know that I could live with myself if I got it and then got somebody else sick, right? And you know, like I'm not at the finish line, right? I'm 48 years old, and I'm not ready. And if I go, my kids and my wife aren't at the finish line. So that to me is what, and you're right, when you made the distinction, it is different, you than me, because I've got kids, and you can be like, well, what are you talking about? The kids are probably going to be fine. It's not about that. If dad, you know, kicks the bucket and shits the bed, and then who's paying for college? Who's doing that? You know, my wife's alone raising our 2 kids, and that's just not something I'm willing to do.
I wasn't laughing at that. I was laughing at this. All right, Robert. Petro's don't be a dick. David,
good, Robert, you're good. Me too.
David piles on. Fat Boys Unite. Aren't you twins? From a build standpoint, yes. I used to be thinner than Petro, but I've caught up, and I think I've passed him now. So very bottom heavy.
You got the snowman build working.
Now here's a good one. I need to diet up. Wait, down, up? I don't know. Yeah. Adam Hill is going to pass me at some point. Really quick, a couple of one Vegas related story, one sports radio story, and then we're going to let Petro go because it's really late where he is. But I don't know.
I got to get through one more 4-hour show tomorrow, and then I got a 5-day weekend because I got Friday off, and I'm taking Monday and Tuesday off. So we're good. Let's. I say we go to dawn.
You ready for this one? We've got a betting scandal in town, even as everything is. You know,
yeah. They didn't shut down the KBO and China baseball leagues. You talking about that one?
Yep. Do you know what happened?
I love that story. I talked about it. Yeah. You can get in on the Dinos. By the way, I picked the Dinos as my KBO team, so I'm loving the season. But yeah, got into the 5th inning, 0-0, and everybody started pounding the under in the Dinos when they took the lead in the 5th inning.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
So the sports book in question, actually, they listed the wrong times. They fucked up. They left the betting open, 2 hours into the game. So yeah, 10-teamer was hit for $137,000. An 8-teamer was hit for $11,100. I just want to give you some of the comment. Well, first of all, I'll get your reaction. How this happened: 1, you had a human error. 2, you don't have enough human beings actually manning the books now. They've tried to automate it, and they're using kiosks. Well, guess what's going to happen? Stuff like this.
Yeah.
Stuff like this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. But it's what gets me. And again, we know lots of people in the sportsbook industry. It's not an easy gig, and goddamn, they're under the gun from corporate types. In the local paper today, one executive said he thinks the bettors who took advantage of this will be identified and prosecuted. Okay. He went as far as saying this. This was like going to the casino cage and sticking a gun in their faces. There's no difference. What these guys did was pure theft.
It to me is what is the problem with our country is everything is 0 or 100, right? Nothing comes in at a 40 or 50 or 60. If it does, everyone feels it's their job to make it 100, right? Like if the problem is a 50, then you got to scream that it's 100. It's like, I don't know if it's a cry for attention. If mommy and daddy didn't love enough of us enough, it is what it is. They made a mistake. And they should have to, like, if you want to say, hey, we're not paying that bet, I don't like that. To me, it's like, listen, they can already say no to taking our wagers, right? Like if you're sharp, like you and I know some of the sharps, right? The guys that got runners all over the city, got runners all over the country. I got a friend, he's got runners literally all over the country, right? And we know some of those guys. And that's how they make them do it. They got to put 500 here, 2,500 there, 2,000 here, and then once they find out that the runner's working for that guy, then they don't take his bets anymore. And that's all legal. If that's going to be legal, then once you put the bet up and once you take the bet, then it's fucking game on, right?
Yep.
You have to be responsible for your own thing. You don't get to turn people away that are kicking your ass and then say, oh, and by the way, also, we made a mistake and you got to pay for it. No, you put lines up. You put times, you keep taking bets, you take in-game wagers, it's no different. You just didn't move the line. So to me, I think it's bullshit. Now you tell me, am I wrong? Because I'm interested. When I talked about this story, I was wondering what you were thinking.
I'll answer you in a second because I wanted to give you the one more inflammatory quote. The person said, of course, unnamed. Nice. What's the difference between this? So again, there were some games in progress when they got the bet in, and you're still betting. Like the game could explode and go over.
Right.
You could be on the wrong side. There's still half the game left. The game's running.
Would they have given it back if they won?
That's another great question. The unnamed person said, what's the difference between that and putting a bet down on a roulette wheel when the ball is already stopped on a number you're trying to steal? Come on, bro. There's a big difference. The game's not over. The other games, some of them hadn't started. So over the top. Well, here's my deal on this. I think it's really bad business to start talking like this. I think you just pay out the bets.
Yes.
FanDuel had an issue in New Jersey where they completely effed up, and eventually they were like, you know what? We'll just pay it out. And here's the deal now with Nevada-based sports books. That's who you're competing against. And you're competing against European books. European books are like, take 137. We're going to get it all back. Like that's the attitude. They don't say that publicly, but that's the attitude behind the scenes. It's just, hey, we fucked up, but we're going to curry good favor by doing right by the customer. So I think the longer they draw this out, I think it's a mistake. And there have been cases in the past when, the books screwed up and gaming here in Nevada actually ruled on the side of the bettor, and they still had to pay them out.
I think that's what the Gaming Commission needs to do. And look, here's the other thing. And I love that. Do your job, right? Well, how about give somebody the job, right? You want to automate everything? Like, listen, how many times, I'm trying to think for myself, like maybe 3 or 4 times, have you just absolutely lost your shit sitting on hold with some company for like an hour and a half when you're trying to give them money even, right? And then you're talking to people in 7 different countries who kick you around, can't answer your question, and you can never talk to a person, right? And the company sucks, but you're stuck because it's a monopoly that they won't break up, and you're stuck talking to some guy, in another country who is probably handling 7 different kinds of companies and is trying to read from some script to try to help you out. It's dog shit. Hire Americans, right, in this time to do the job and answer the phones and train them to know what it is. Hire people at the windows to take the bets and do it right. When you go to automation, one guy makes a mistake, it affects a million things, right? Because if he made a mistake, all the computers just do what he tells them to do. One guy makes a mistake and you got guys at the window, then it's just one thing, right? It's only one window that's making the mistake. So to me, like, this is it. Like, you're responsible for running your book. And it's the same kind of thing, like as we sit here during this COVID virus, and all the companies that got paid back when the mortgage bubble happened are all getting paid again, right? They're no better. After '08, everyone's like, oh, well, we really learned a lot. Like, that's the thing. I keep hearing this. Here's, you want to talk about punching somebody in the face? The guy who goes, well, you know what? And we're going to come out of this better for it. Fuck you. Fuck you. We didn't come out of it better in '08. It's all the same shit. It's all the same shit. You know what? How we got better? The government went, oh, shit. We can't screw around arguing about this. We got to get these people their money. We got to pay them right now, or the economy is really going to tank. The only thing that got better were the politicians at fanning out the cash to all the businesses. None of the businesses are run any better, right? And so you've got all these people taking the money off the top. When if you would pay people and have the employees in place and do the things you need to do, then we would be sitting in a situation where it would have never happened in that situation, and I could get somebody on the goddamn phone when my TV isn't working or my phone isn't working or whatever it is I'm trying to actually make work.
Yeah. Let companies go under in certain cases, right? And as Sean points out, you know, they're double dipping. Let's see. John just jumped in. All right, John. Well, you just woke up. We've done about an hour. So we were just talking about sports betting scandal here in Las Vegas. I actually, I want to close on this, and I don't want to get like all sour, all sad, but well, one, happy news. You know, it's the 33rd anniversary of WFAN.
Yeah.
It's crazy that much time has gone by. They opened things up in 1987. I grew up on that station. Obviously I do what I do because I heard all those guys on WFAN. So that's awesome. We were all spawned off of WFAN. By the way, if New York didn't do it first, right, and do eventually 24 hours, we still would have had sports radio around the country, right?
Yes.
Or did that have to happen for all of this to happen?
No, I think it was inevitable. I mean, I think it helped that it was New York with all the teams they've got. It made it easier. I mean, think about right now the show you do versus what we did when we were back at Sports Fan in the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're so much better prepared and know where to go and know what people want. And I think as consumers, we're better and we know what we want as far as what we want to get there. I think it would have happened, but I think it got to where it needed to go faster because WFAN did it.
Right.
You know, I think I will fault, Don Imus for all his faults. What was a guy that was a major player in radio, right? I don't want to throw compliments or insults at the guy. He's someone who can't speak for themselves. He's dead, right?
He died.
Yeah. So I don't want to.
By the way, he died, and I did a little, kind of a 2-minute. Hey, this guy was a radio guy, and of course, it's hard to say that now because he had so many. He was a racist, and he's kind of a scumbag.
A lot of problems.
But there's a lot in his story. But keep going because this is something I've been doing a lot lately because I kind of feel like we're starting to get in trouble. I've done a lot of like, hey, I'm really into radio, and I support radio people who get and really love the craft.
Right, and so the one thing that was like he was an iconic show. And they wouldn't take him off there and make WFAN all sports. Like, I think, yes, WFAN in New York and all their teams, it was amazing to see them go down the sports road. But the fact that they still were holding on to this vine, like, oh, shit, maybe this won't work. And Imus puts big numbers. Instead of moving Imus to another station with a whole lineup that kind of fit that genre was amazing, right? What was amazing. And when they finally said, okay, we can actually do a morning sports show and we'll be okay, it's just all part of the story of sports radio in this country.
Well, I think originally FAN did try a sports morning show, but what the mistake they made, and we still see these mistakes, is they cast guys who really weren't sports radio talents. I'm pretty sure Jim Lampley was in the morning as one of their first morning shows, which is, if you know Lampley, that's laughable.
Well, how much, though, do we still, in this industry, deal with the people that, like, are going to reinvent it? We're going to talk about more than sports, right? Listen, right now, you can't help but talk about the virus. You can't help but talk about Black Lives Matter. I mean, it is absolutely, it's crashing into sports, right? And so there are days that is just going to be a part of what you talk about while catering to sports. But like for so long, this business, I remember, and I'm not going to name, I don't want to bust anybody. I don't know. I thought about it, but
Oh, on this, go ahead. Who wants to do it first? Go ahead. Start telling the story.
Well, is it the one the one I was going to tell is the guy who in about 2010 or 11 or 12 said, "Well, we're going to do more than just sports, right? Like I don't want to just be boxed in. I'm going to do more than sports." And he was an actor that was going to do sports talk radio, and there was a bunch of us in the business, been in the business for a long time, sitting there, and we all looked at ourselves and went, "Oh, great, another fucking Einstein that thinks that not talking sports on sports stations is going to be the wave of the future." Okay. Yeah, let's see how this works. I mean, it is amazing to me.
By the way, any guesses from the audience who that was?
Do you know who it is?
I don't, but I'm thinking. I think he was in radio already before this, but I'm thinking someone like a Roger Lodge who had done. No, you know who it is?
You're down that path. I mean,
okay. God, I can't remember who it is.
He's a former actor, maybe still actor.
Yeah. Anyone got some guesses? Sean was
did not. Let me put it this way: he did not make a dent in the industry.
Right. Well, because everyone can say they're going to talk more, about more than sports, but like they're not interesting. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you're right. The way to be next level sports talk in a lot of markets is to be well rounded and talk about stuff that's non-sports, but you can't be a boring fuck. Like you have to be interesting. The most important thing I think, and this is what Petro is really good at, and I still have to get better at. I'll tell you who's really good at it is Chad Dukes in DC. When you tell your stories and you do non-sports stuff, you have to connect with that average listener, right? That's the magical part of like, I'll give you some names. I'll give you a name. I've never gotten well, I can't say that. I've watched Softy in Seattle, and I'm like, man, I don't get it. In some ways I don't get it. But then, like, as you watch him, and then I watch his interactions on Twitter, he's a fan.
Yeah.
People in Seattle freaking loved him. And that's when some guy comes in from the outside, an actor, and he's like, oh, we're just going to, I'm going to get a big audience because we're going to do non-sports stuff. Yeah, but if you're not believable and you're boring and people don't think you're funny or they think you're an elitist and you're out of touch, they're not going to connect with you.
Yeah, there's an audience expectation. I think there's always room to have fun or, come along for the ride. No, nice guess. No.
I actually thought when there's a lot of stories about Jay Moore. When Jay Moore showed up and actually did the show, and he's a really talented guy in terms of riffing. I actually thought he did a decent, above average show at times when he was on.
I think if that's what he wanted to do, he can be really good.
Yeah.
Right. But I think he was just doing it to get to the next thing that he really wanted to do.
Right.
But no, listen, I think there's always a place like you have to connect with the listeners, right? It's all of us just sitting around a bar, right? And we're talking sports. It's what you love to do with your buddies. And while you're talking sports, you also bitch about your relationship or talk about, when you get older and you have kids, how your kid's coach sucks because he doesn't play your kid enough, right? There's all those things you find yourself, in that you can make your way to and relate with your listener, that I think there's always time for that, right? But it's the guy who, in reality, what I think happens too often is it's the guy who he really doesn't like sports that much, and he doesn't invest the time to know sports. And so really all he's doing is bullshitting his way through an hour. Mm-hmm. And he has nothing prepared. He either didn't prepare or doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know the stories and why they're relatable to his audience, right? We can sit here and talk quarterbacks, and why it's relatable to your audience in Vegas is Marcus Mariota, it's Derek Carr, it's John Gruden's history with quarterbacks. Did a golden egg just get stuck under his ass when he got Rich Gannon, and because the Chiefs screwed it up because Marty didn't get quarterbacks, and in reality, the Chiefs' salary cap was crap. That's why they stayed with Elvis Gerbach. But all those elements, does he not know that to where he can relate that? Is that guy not talking about quarterbacks because he doesn't know anything about the quarterbacks, about Gruden, about Mariota, about Carr in my town? It's Mahomes. Before that, it was Alex Smith. It's Reed's history with quarterbacks. Brett Veach, the general manager that he spent basically 2 years in Lubbock, Texas, as a guy in the front office vetting Patrick Mahomes. Like, have you done your background to where you can tell those stories and say, hey, this is why they got it right on this guy? And so you end up just saying, oh my God, I farted and it smelled so bad. Okay, funny for about 10 seconds, but it's not 2 segments. Right? It's not 2 segments. Like, do you have something to say? Like, that's the most important thing. Like, do you want to be in sports talk radio? Do you have something to say? If you don't have anything to fucking say, then you can't do the job, right? And that doesn't mean you can't do other jobs around it, but you can't do the job if you don't have something to say. And that sounds simplistic. Like, there's a difference between having something to say and just having diarrhea of the mouth, right? Everybody's got that friend that they talk and talk and talk. And you're like, all of a sudden 5 minutes have gone on, you're like, I haven't heard a goddamn word you said. Like, what is this shit? What are you babbling about over there? Right? Like, that guy can't do sport. You got to have somewhere you're going. Yeah. If all your friends are staring at their phone while you're out at the bar and it's your turn to chime in, like, sports radio is not your thing. At some point, you got to command the room.
Really good comments on radio. Left Coast Mike thinks I was talking about Cowherd earlier. Absolutely not. We play more Cowherd sound because he'll be against us many times and we can play off of him as a third host. I think Cowherd, he's annoying to a certain part of the audience, but I think the way he does radio by himself is brilliant. And, listen, some of the stances he's taken now they're crazy, but he's good, man. He's an all-timer. So
I don't know much about what he's become at Fox. I do think sometimes Fox has an agenda they're driving. But I will say this, and I know Colin. I got his number in my phone, right? I've talked to him throughout the years, not really in the last 6, 7, 8 years. Have I known him?
Petro was not attacking Ryan McKinnell. I wouldn't let him do that.
No, I wouldn't do that. But I will say this, Colin Cowherd has something to say. You might not like it. You might not agree with it. And I often don't agree with his conclusions.
Right.
But, and I think he can fall, if I had a criticism and if he asked me, which he never would, like, oh, what can I do better? Like, don't kiss the ass of whoever's sitting in front of you so much.
The interviews have been, there's been too many times too, when he's gotten caught being unprepared on, like, really I defend the guy like a lot, but, what was the interview with Burrow? And they were talking about Burrow and it was freaking Urban Meyer. And like, he didn't really know that Joe Burrow was at Ohio State with Urban Meyer. That was bad.
And especially when
that you don't hear, but here's the thing. It happens as you get older and you start relying more and more on your production staff. You've got a big staff, and then, you slip a little bit in terms of doing your homework.
Well, there's some P. Diddy to it.
It's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah, no, listen, there's that, but there's also some Puff Daddy to it, right? The old line, more money, more problems, right? As you go up, there's shit I can tell you right now, like, there was nothing you were going to get by me when I was 23 years old. Nope. Right. But I also didn't have one sponsor to take care of. I didn't have to go on one client meeting. I didn't have to sit in one sales meeting. I didn't have to go to one promotions meeting. I didn't do one remote. And, you got to travel there. You got to be there. You got to talk to the client. And listen, I love the listeners and I want to talk to the listeners during the remote. But that means, like, during the break, those 5 minutes that, like, sitting here quarantined in my house, I'm like, what story's going on? What's coming up? Like, I'm on top of things more, and people want to have you out. So, hey, you go out there, you're helping the station, more money's coming into the station, your show's getting more successful, and Cowherd's up there. There's more demands on your time that happens, right? And I get it, but I do think, like, when I heard his Chris Jones interview in February, like, he might as well have curled up in his lap and like a little puppy dog and asked to be petted. The Jim Harbaugh interview, which was like got all this run nationally. You bring Jim Harbaugh on and think that you're going to be like, Coach, should we get better? And, should there be more TV exposure? And Harbaugh goes, yes. And he's going to one word you. Like, have you done any, have you ever heard Jim Harbaugh? Like, you have to be prepared for your interview. Like, don't ask him a one-word answer, because he's not going to do the typical, let me give you 2.5 minutes here, and I'm going to do your job for you. You ask him a yes, no, you're going to get a yes, no. You need to at least be ready to go, why? Right? Like, I interviewed Jim Harbaugh when he won the 101 awards for the NFC Coach of the Year with the Niners, his first year. And I consider it my most entertaining interview I've ever done. And there are long, uncomfortable pauses, which in radio just draws the listener in. Oh, shit, did my radio? What the hell's going on? And then he speaks. You're like, oh, my God. And then you ask him a question. Like, I asked him, like, listen, Kansas hired him to be the Kansas football coach when he was at Stanford. Before his last year at Stanford, They had a deal done. Lou Perkins hired him, right?
Wow.
And then he backed out. And there was this rumor that was everywhere. And then he goes to he stays at Stanford, and everyone's like, oh, that's bullshit. I don't buy it. Right? And then he goes to the Niners, has that great first year, and he's the NFC Coach of the Year. I've got him on the radio because the 101 awards are given in Kansas City. And so he comes on with me. He's also his in-laws, great people, the Fearborns here in Kansas City. I know them a little bit. My wife's knows them real well. Yeah. And so I had a little bit of a connection. And so I get him on. And I'm like, okay, we're definitely going to talk about Kansas. Right? I said, Jim, let me ask you a question. I said, the rumor around here is that Kansas had you done, that you were coming back here. You were going to coach the Kansas Jayhawks. You had a deal done. And Lou Perkins, the AD, said, you got to come now and not coach the bowl game at Stanford. And there's this long pause. And I'm like, listen, let me give you anyone out there who's an aspiring radio guy. First person to talk fucking loses.
Yep.
Okay? Sit it out. Wait it out. Wait it out. Silence is golden. You don't have to have diarrhea of the mouth and fill every second. Silence is golden. And he paused for like 4 or 5 seconds. And I was actually sitting by the batting cages at the Royal Spring Training site doing my show for spring training. And like I think there's even like, hitting, the hitting sounds in the background. And I'm like, I don't give a shit if we go 10 minutes. I am not saying a word.
That's
it is
brilliant.
on him. And he goes, and he waits and he waits and he goes, I can't be at 2 places at once. I can't be at 2 places at once. And when you give your word to your team that you're going to be there, that we go into this year and we're all going to be here from beginning to end and we're going to do what it takes, I can't walk away from my team. I can't do that. I can't be at 2 places at once. The guy confirmed that he was going to Kansas. Now think about it. Has anybody there in Vegas ever heard that Jim Harbaugh was going to take the Kansas football job? And I'm telling you, he was going to take, and I'm going to tell you, I also have people on the inside. I know he was taking the job. All right, I will tell you that is a fact. He was going to take the Kansas job before his last year at Stanford, and I got it on the radio. He didn't say I was taking it, but he did everything but say it, and you knew what he was getting at. Yeah, Lou Perkins dicked that up because he didn't want him to coach the bowl game, and you know who they hired instead? Turner Gill.
That worked
Turner
out.
Gill.
Oops.
I mean, that's so back to our point about Colin Cowherd doing that interview. You get Jim Harbaugh on, he's not going to shit his pants.
Right.
Like when you ask him a tough question, and he is going to give you radio gold if you're ready to do the interview.
You got to know that. And that's also the people around him not prepping him, not knowing what to do there. I'll show you the difference in our maturity levels. And I don't know if the audience was paying attention the other day. We had Joe Theismann on, right? And I don't like using the word segment, so I try to avoid it. But right before that, we were talking about Stephen A. Smith said the NBA players in this bubble, they got to fuck. They are going to have, they want to smash, man. They're not going to be able to control themselves. So we did this whole thing on that. So I got Joe Theismann on, and I tell Ari, I was like, all right, first of all, my goal with Joe Theismann is to tell me how many women he fucked in the 70s and 80s. Like, that guy was an icon. And I told Ari, I was like, put up a picture of him shirtless with the hair and everything. So Theismann comes in and he thinks, like, we're going to get to Joe Bugle. He just passed away.
So he's in studio?
No. He's on the phone.
Okay.
Right. But he comes in like, hey, we called him. We're like, hey, we want to talk about Joe Bugle. But like live radio, like we just talked about effing. So guess what? Theismann, I want some stories. And I tried, man. I tried.
And nothing?
Like it threw him off. He's like, oh, my wife. And he giggled and I just, he stopped after like trying not to answer it. And now that's
cool.
I did exactly what you did. I'm like, I'm just going to lay back. Now he never, I even did a follow-up. I tried, but sometimes you gotta be unafraid to like sort of irk somebody, ask him my question was not a tough question. It might've been an uncomfortable question. I guarantee, and I don't know if Theismann drinks, but if Theismann was not on the air, you know what? In a way, I was going to say he would have talked about it. Maybe I failed in the interview. Maybe there was something I could have done to get him to start talking about Smash. Because what I really wanted to talk about was Cannonball Run 2. And it was like friggin' because he was in the movie.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking like 84. This guy, he was effing left and right. I don't want to say he was, cheating on his wives or whatever, but he's around Catherine Bach, right? That's Daisy Duke, friggin' Susan Anton, like these all-time hot 70s and 80s women. He's looking at him. He's like, I got to get that on my scoreboard.
Who was it? Was it Cheryl Ladd, who was the first like swimsuit, Sports Illustrated swimsuit model? Was she the one he was dating when he broke his leg on Monday Night Football and he was in the hospital and he did the press conference from like the hospital bed or they had shots?
Yeah.
She was standing there at his hospital bed.
Really?
I think it was Cheryl Ladd.
I know in the 80s, for much of the time, he actually dated, which is a whole nother conversation I would love to have with him, Kathy Lee Crosby.
Oh, that's gold.
I mean, she's a lunatic. I can only imagine. God, I wanted to get more out of that. Connor, I tried, man. Dude, I think Mike Pritchard was looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying, man. Trying.
I think, listen, I love it. I love that you went there. And I don't know about you, but for me, like I had Jeff Long, the Kansas AD on, right? Yeah. They came through settling a lawsuit that their football coach, David Beatty, had filed against them. And they've got an NCAA investigation on the basketball program. And so what I'll do is be like, hey, I get on the phone beforehand and say, Jeff, I just want you to know this is coming and this is coming. Right. And then I also told him, I said, listen, I'm going to ask you about athletes being empowered now that Black Lives Matters. There are college football players that are now willing to stand up to their coaches in the programs like never before. I'm going to bring those up. And he's like, okay, I appreciate you telling me. And, and he was great. He had great answers for me. And it was not, nobody wants to talk about being under NCAA investigation, but he did a great job with it. But like, you kind of can't, do you think if you'd have told Theismann beforehand you were going to go there, that he might have been like, let me cook up one good story to tell?
I don't know. He actually gave us a couple of things he didn't want to talk about even before that, which he never does.
Really? So, what was it?
He didn't want to talk about the Redskins name change, which I sort of understand. Like, I don't know.
He is on the Redskins payroll, isn't he?
He's one of the broadcasters. Yeah, he's like he does. Yeah, I know he does preseason. So,
which by the way, I talked about that with Chad Dukes.
Yeah,
I had Dukes on the 2-minute drill, and we brought that up. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But I can see why Theismann. Listen, as long as you don't run up against Daniel Snyder, he apparently will pay every Redskin to be on the payroll. And I can't hate a guy grabbing a check.
Let's see. I had this is another one I wanted to get to as we were, Petro was telling stories earlier about entertainers trying to get into sports radio, and then that turned into Cowherd. But Petro has knowledge of this guy. Where the fuck is the comment? Someone was asking, sorry for the cussing. Someone was asking about Gottlieb, and they said Sean said, I feel like that's Gottlieb lately. Dude is losing his mind. That thing a couple of weeks ago that he put out about the players of Oklahoma State and what they were demanding, and it was like, you saw this, right? Where he's like,
just a little bit. And full disclosure for people there in Vegas who don't know, Doug Gottlieb for years was my college basketball insider, and I talked to him every week of the college basketball season. And so I respect him as a broadcaster. I think he's somebody who has something to say. But tell the story about what it was.
So Gottlieb sends out a text like he's got inside info, and he said the biggest Oklahoma State player demands. This is after the whole Chuba Hubbard, the demand. Then I thought Chuba got just played, and he was forced to apologize and all that. Gottlieb goes, hey, these are the demands to the policy. The players want to be able to wear earrings, do-rags, ability to sag their pants. They want, more rights over their hair and music. They want to play music in the locker room with curse words. And like a lot of people read it and they're like, this is sarcasm, right? Like you're like, this is a weird joke you're telling. No, I think he went to one person, on the Gundy side, probably a white, who that tells you a lot. If that's all that's not all of their demands. There may have been conversations about that.
Right.
Gottlieb put it out. He got dragged for 3 hours and then was like, listen, this wasn't well sourced. I apologize. I got this wrong, and pulled it down. And I find that I don't know if it's like he feels like he has to be, there's more competition or something. Like he's getting loose like that a lot more often than he did in the past.
I do get a vibe that Fox there's an expectation that that's what they want. Their idea is you got to go out and you got to create controversy. You got to stir the shit. And that's where you got to go with this. And it just seems like, because, Cowherd was a guy that was very much nuts and bolts sports and all about football. And it just seems like when you go there, there's like this need to keep ratcheting it up and one-upsmanship and topping it. And, I listen, I don't have them on. Well, maybe they are in this town. Maybe they're on my competition. So I don't hear them. Like I make a point nothing against my competition. There are good people over there. They do, they work hard. I'm not a hater. I respect everybody who tries to work hard and do a good job. And I got some friends working on our competition that used to work with me. And so I respect them, but I don't ever listen to them because I don't ever want to be influenced by what they do. Right. But so Fox is on over there and we have ESPN with us. And so I don't ever really listen to what's going on over there, but there's definitely this one, sensational approach to what they're doing. And listen, maybe it's successful. I mean, like for me, I don't know about you, Steve. I remember it was after I left Sports Fan, which is where Steve and I worked together back in the day in Vegas. And, when I left, there was a point soon after I left where I decided, I got demoted slots. And I was like, you know what? Screw this shit. I'm going to do my show my way. And that's going to take me however far it's going to take me. And I'm not going to do shtick. And I'm not going to, back when we were, kids doing this, the Fabulous Sports Babe and all this, like, and God bless her, she had this, like, her shtick was she was the rough and tumble gal that would do whatever. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm doing my show my way. And I'm going to go as far as that'll take me. And if that takes me to unemployment, then I'll figure out what else to do at that point. And I just feel like sometimes some people are like, oh shit, this is the expectation, or I've got to do this. And for the check, I've got to go do this. And I feel very proud, for lack of a better word, that I've done every show the way I think it should be done. And I've never done it because somebody else told me this is what you got to do. Right? There's been one time when there was a big radio war going on in town where I was told you got to bring these people on and you got to discuss this. And it was the worst thing ever, but it was like, do this or be fired. And other than that day, every day I've done what I think is the best sports radio that I can do. And I think if you do that, you'll be better. Gottlieb is a great basketball analyst. He's got a lot to say. He's totally headstrong. He's never won a bet with me, right? Feel free if anybody wants to tweet at him. You ask him, he owes me like 3 or 4 dinners. He's never paid up on one of those bets. But shocker. I kicked his ass in every one of those bets. But I would still say Gottlieb is a professional friend. We've never hung out, so I can't say we're friends like Steve and I, have been out many a night and have stories about each other that we won't tell on the radio, right? But he's not a friend like that, but he's a professional friend, and he does at least have something to say. I'll give him that. But if he's gone, wacko, I can't tell. But he did get a ticket. I saw that. He did get a ticket live on the air with me while we were doing the segment, and he talked his way out of it. The cop was an Oklahoma State fan. He was going down, driving into Stillwater to do a game on ESPN, and the cop recognized him. He's like, oh, yeah, remember that time you had your shorts on backwards? It's like, oh, yeah. So we listened to him talk his way out of a ticket while he was on the air with us.
That's funny.
That's good times. That's good radio.
I probably don't have the answer that Sean is looking for here. I don't know if you have one, but who inspired you to get into radio? I'm not really a huggy, kissy type, guy. Sports media is one thing, but radio is pretty specific.
Radio, I think you make your choice on what medium. Somewhere along the line of what attracted you. Like I went to college thinking I'm going to be a Sports Center anchor or a play-by-play guy.
Really?
Yeah, and I was bored as shit doing sports on TV. Like there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than sitting around for 3 hours writing up, 2 minutes of copy. And I was like, this sucks. And play-by-play I liked. I did that in college. Did a little bit of it when I first got into the business. I would do it if it fell in my lap, right? It's probably that day's clearly come and gone at 48. That, the Chiefs are going to be like, hey, here, do our play-by-play.
Not me. I'll be the Raiders guy after Brent's gone.
But you might be. You're still doing broadcasts. You did some this year, didn't you, with UNLV?
I do sidelines. It's something I
want
to
do color for a couple of games.
No. There was talk of possibly doing color for basketball, but they went in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, listen, I think that day will come. I don't think everybody has to be. Well, we'll leave that alone. But anyway, the point being about what drove me into it. you get into college, you start doing things, or you get into the industry and you find what you like, right? And the person who didn't say go do radio to me, but the person that gave me the advice I needed that ultimately took me to sports talk radio was my mom, because she pounded me with the idea of, listen, you're going to spend a third of your life working. Do what you like to do. Make sure you enjoy your job, right? If you enjoy your job and you have a passion about it, the money will take care of itself. But you're going to spend a third of your life working. Don't do some shitty job because it pays a couple of bucks more. And listen, as you know, you get into radio, and for a lot of people, it never pays any money, but it pays no one anything at all when you start. I mean, it's bullshit how low people get paid to start in this business, because like you almost have to be able to live at home to be able to start in this industry, which is a joke. But I will tell you that if you have a passion about it and you work at it, you're going to move up. And so that's the advice that I was given that worked for me.
Yeah. I didn't really get any advice. I was, I thought I was good and I thought I knew stuff and I loved talking sports. And when I would say,
but you were a writer first, right?
Well, no, not really. Cause,
didn't you write for a paper in Jersey?
I did, but growing up, I listened to FAN, and as I listened to him, I'm like, because I was a dickhead when I was 6 years old. So I'd listen to him.
We all know more.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm better, right? I wasn't. I had no idea, but that motivated me. And then honestly, I got really lucky when I went to school. Like it was something I thought about doing, and I just happened to get placed in a dorm next to two guys who were like, "Hey, we're going over to the sports radio station. You want to go?" Like if not for those two guys, maybe I don't ever do it. I go over there, I start whatever, coming off as confident, talking. I get in on the staff, and we Syracuse is awesome. You guys are, it's a great radio program. We had a really good radio station, and we did they sent us everywhere for play-by-play. So I did play-by-play for everything, but we had the post-game shows, we had call-in shows, and like as soon as I started doing that, I'm like, yep, FAN, I freaking love doing this. And then when I got out of school, I did start writing, right? But I still wanted to do it. And luckily with connections, our buddy Ryan Williams happened to move out to Vegas. He got a job because he was a behind the scenes guy on WFAN. I talked to the boss at Sports Fan Radio Network in formal conversation in April. He calls me up like, I don't know, 2 months later. He's like, you want to come out as a producer? And like, I didn't even know what a producer really was. I'm like, yeah, I'll come out. Yeah. And then I got lucky because the guy he was doing a show with was a drunk and a drug addict. And like his life was in shambles. Remember Wild Bill? Right. Yeah. You weren't even there yet. But I know
the stories, but no, I wasn't there when he was.
Ryan's partner went AWOL. They were like, hey, can you fill in? I filled in. And one of the first comments, and I will always hold on to this as like the greatest compliment. Charlie Barker, our boss, after I got off the air, was like, man, he's like, your delivery and the way you talk is exactly the way and as comfortable as you are off the air. And I'm like, yep. Like, I'm not going, because I didn't go in like, I got to be power voice guy. I got to change my name. I'm doing what I do off the air. Now, I mean, obviously over the years, there's more dramatic pauses and I'm doing stupid voices and yelling and all that. But yeah, I don't know if that was a great story, but yeah, there wasn't like my parents weren't like, you love sports, you got to go into it. My parents, they're great people, but they weren't like, hey, you love sports, you got to get into this. You got to go for radio. Just lots of things fall in place. You meet the right people. I guess going back to your point about the maskers, unless you're a complete dick, you have friends and, you get breaks and you make connections and things work out.
A friend of mine I got a number of friends that are, I think most of them all now were in stand-up comedy. And one of my friends, probably when I was in my late 20s, said to me, he goes, your business and my business are the same. They weed out the people who aren't serious. And, we both happened to, he was in comedy and I was in radio, but I think that almost works for any industry anyone works in, right? If you're serious about it and you keep pushing and working hard, eventually you will outlast the jackasses that don't. Uh-huh. And then that web of connections, like what you said is like, well, I got lucky and I knew. No, you met Ryan, who was serious. He got to a spot. He knew you were serious. So he brought you in. You proved yourself there. You moved up. I mean, every industry will weed out those who aren't serious. And if you are serious, it's the same thing with acting. Like it's not a coincidence that there's this little cluster of guys from Kansas City that are in comedic acting. Paul Rudd, Jason Sudeikis, and Oh crap. Guy who's on Fox doing the football stuff.
Oh, Rob Riggle.
Rob
Rob
Riggle.
Riggle.
And I know Rob a little. Great guy. Part of it is like they knew each other, right? They came from the same school district. Two of them went to the same high school, but they also were serious. They worked. They did their thing. Like every industry, it's the same. Like I think if you work well, you'll eventually make the connections with the other people who work hard, and you'll make your way up.
But I love that because I tell that self-deprecating story all the time, and it's mostly true. But on being serious, like I'm not going to say this is it's like hard work. It's not. I'm not going to compare it to what my dad did. My dad was a union worker for like 30 years. Like that's hard work, getting up, and I don't know if he liked it. I think he liked the guys that he worked with, stuff like that. But like you have to have a passion for what you do, and like even today, I'm freaking old. Like I mean, I opened the show tonight here on this video, and I was like, I was so worked up about something in sports and locally that I was like on the verge of tears, and like that was all natural. But every day I get ready for a show, like that's the show, man. Yeah. Like we're not fucking around. And then someone was joking earlier about someone was. By the way, that's a good podcast name. We're not fucking around. But someone was joking earlier about my producer Ari, he's done a really good job, and he's really picking up steam lately. And you probably missed the story. We gave Ari a ridiculous challenge about 3 weeks ago to just get some rando that we saw at a casino on a video. He was gaming. He had a mask on, and he was trying to smoke with the mask on. Right? It's like that's Vegas, right? He has the mask on. He had gloves.
Is he smoking through it, or is he trying to wedge it?
He did it out the side, and then he would take the mask and be like, and it just turned into this whole thing on the chat. And I put up $300 to get him. Then for some reason, Adam Hill and then especially John Von Tobel, who was on it, like really wanted to challenge Ari. Ari got $700 to get this guy to book one guest, just some rando from the community. But like since then, I think he's been extra motivated. But someone was joking earlier about.
By the way, what did the guy say about smoking through a mask?
He just said, you know what? This guy, he's a degenerate gambler. That's the biggest thing. Like he really loves playing. He said that when he goes to play the machines, well, first of all, he asked his wife if we could go out to play the machines. He actually went to a place, Barley's. I don't know if Barley's was here when you were here. It's on Sunset right near, well, it's kind of Sunset and Sunset over in Henderson. But anyway, he asked his wife to go out because he loves gaming, right? And he's been locked up.
Right.
She's like, as long as you're safe, as long as you're safe. He hit for $1,200 on a machine, and he goes, I always smoke after I hit big. So that was a challenge. He's sitting there, and someone got him on video. But long story short, Ari got him.
That's awesome.
And he got the big payout. And then someone was joking earlier about me getting old and slipping. Like, oh, you're going to have to, lean on Ari more and more. And like, yeah, you do. You know what? As you get older and the guys you work with or the women you work with figure out the show, you do lean on them more. So this is not a one-person deal.
Some of it's like, I think, like young coaches are like this. They think they got to do it all because nobody can do their job. And what you realize is if you let him do his job, right, then and he can do it well. And maybe he doesn't do it the same way you do. He does it over here, but it frees you up to do other things well. Like, Jed, sour ass Jed, who produces my show, right? And may end up working for you one day, right? Because he dreams about maybe living someplace besides Kansas City. He's a single guy. And, he is fantastic, right? Like, I'm going to tell you right now, who do I have on the show coming up? I have no idea. How much input have I put into our guest? None. Like maybe one guest every couple of weeks. I'll be like, hey, you know what? Let's get this guy on because he grinds and grinds through every story and gets it. And he comes up with guys that I wouldn't see or don't see. And I'm like, okay, we're having this guy. Why are we having him on? He wrote this thing because of this. I think it'd be a really good conversation. You and him, he said this shit and you said this shit. And I think if you guys are talking, it'll be really good. And it's like, so you say that like, well, we just we can't do it. And there is some of that. There's no doubt you get old and tired and worn down and shit. We all do. But I think also you get smarter and wiser and you recognize I can't do it all. And so instead of doing a bunch of things kind of half-assed, you do the couple of things that you do really well and you find the people around you to put in place and say, go do this. I think that's a strength. You're making it out like, we're getting propped up. No, maybe you are up your ass, Steve. Maybe you are. I'm just getting smarter.
No, I love to delegate because I am a control freak. But once I trust someone, then I trust them big time. And Ari actually, Pritch has done a really good job filling in because Adam Hill's been out all week in Mexico, and Ari's prep lists have been awesome. And his stories carried like half of the Justin Watkins spot today, and we did. I don't know. We did like 45 minutes with Justin. So Ari put up a lot of those stories. But
by the way, can I highlight something here?
Yeah.
Cofield is legit. Like, he's a gambler. He might talk like he's a degenerate. He's not a degenerate. You know what he is? He is straight up like, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll bet you can't do that. Like, how much you want to bet? Like $200. And then you win and they don't pay you. Like those pieces of shit. Cofield, I had a bet going with a number of different people for $50 and $100 here and there that I couldn't get below a certain weight.
Yep.
And Cofield's like, you fat ass. There is no way you can get down. I was below 200 pounds. I had to get to below 200 pounds. And you're like, no way you can get your fat ass. I go, what do you want to bet? And Steve goes, $1,000. I go, done. And I had to do it by the end of the year. And I got to 199.5. Right. And took the picture on the scale, had a witness. And Cofield was the first person to pay up. Guys owed me $20, $25, $50. Like everybody started jumping on. By the way, Doug Stewart still blames you as the reason why he lost his $100. It's because he's like, Petro wouldn't have done it for $400 or $500. He'd have just eaten a bunch of shit, stayed a fat ass, and paid us all out. But when you came on for $1,000, that was it because I ended up like $2,500 on the line. But you were the first guy to pay. So when you talk about that with Ari, yeah, I know you deliver the goods.
Read what he said. I did.
There you go.
Because he told me like how close he was, and I gave him 250 of the 300 before he was on, and then there was those guys bet him that he wouldn't come on, the guest wouldn't come on, he wouldn't come in studio, and once he was in studio, then I threw him the other $50, and that was it. So I think he's still haggling with one of the other guys.
Yeah, listen. I had a guy I told him who worked with me and needs me to do things for him, right? I won't say who it is. And I told him, listen, you MFer, you will never, ever, because like there's one thing, I always pay my bets. I'm like you. You make a bet, that is more than the law. I will absolutely pay my bet. But I will tell you this right now. Like if you don't pay me, oh, man, there's some shit. Like, and I'll tell people we make a bet. We're not fucking around here. You're making a bet. This is going to come to fruition.
Yep.
Right? I don't mind Gottlieb and his dinners. All right, whatever. I'd rather hold it over his head than actually have the dinner. But, I told this guy, and he's like, oh, shit, man. He goes, you need to calm down. I said, no, you need to do what you said you'd do. And so it's important. You make a bet, you pay your bet.
And not paying it off now is utterly absurd because you have Venmo.
Oh, I know.
It's
literally
not even,
click on your phone.
So to not pay it off is bad. And here's the thing. When I bet Ari, I wanted him to win. I didn't want to win. I wanted the guest. It's like, now Ari thinks there's like he's going to like, I'm going to torture him now for the next year and bring it up all the time. Like it came with conditions. I don't think I've done that yet, but it'll be brought up every once in a while.
But I will also say that for any of my listeners, right? Steve's big money. Steve. I mean, big swinging dick when it comes to. What do you roll around? What do you like? You said you feel naked if you don't have 10G in your pocket.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the thing is, I think I have a giant cock, and then I'm like, wait, why did I do that? Like, this is hot dog on the hallway situation. I shouldn't be betting 300 or 500 or 1,000. What am I doing, idiot? One last thing. I don't know if anyone had any more questions for Petro. As we went way too long. We appreciate it, Petro.
I'm always good.
I brought up the FAN point because there's the flip side of that station celebrating 33 years on the air, and it's places like Extra 690, a legendary station in San Diego. And I just saw that, and this one should hit home for you because I think it was one of the. Can you name like the 5 or 6 most important stations that you were on that Sports Fan Radio Network had you on? And especially if you did overnights, like the caller places, because the places I can. God, you try to name them.
All right, so we'll see if we got EEI in Boston, WEEI in Boston.
Yep, amazing.
San Francisco, KNBR in San Francisco.
Yep.
WDFN in Detroit.
You can stop there.
Okay.
There is no more WDFN. They're done.
What?
Yeah.
I got a guy I use on the drill from Detroit
Yeah.
And we always quote two stations. What DFN's not sports?
Well, first of all, I think if I'm correct, they were getting beat up pretty good by the other Detroit radio station. They've been passed by. They're switching programming, and I don't have any issue with this, but they're part of a switch on a lot of iHeart stations to something called the Black Information Network. But DFN has been leaking oil for a while. Yeah, it says here DFN ends 25-year sports talk legacy in Detroit. The reason DFN was so important to us, and you mentioned some of the other key stations, KNBR in San Francisco, WEI in Boston, KJR in Seattle. KJR in Seattle was
KJR
really
in Seattle would be the next one, and maybe could have gone in front of any of those three. Yep. That was huge.
But I think some of us were on the ticket, like before the ticket in Dallas went all over. That's a powerhouse station.
WDAE in Tampa was always a big one. I always pulled a lot of calls out of DAE.
That was one of my early ones. But I will tell you, DFN in Detroit was that was a great caller station, not only for us, but I brought up an old name the other day when I think I tweeted about it, but for the Sports Pig, that was one of his stations. When the Sports Pig was going freaking crazy and just you're gone, you're done, hang up. He could just go through freaking 15 calls in, a 12-minute block. But yeah, I was sad to see that. And man, I hope that towns need competition. First of all, they need two sports radio stations. And the last thing we need is stations going bye-bye, but who knows where we're going with podcasts and all this stuff. So that's a good sports town too. It is.
And I mean, the industry's evolving, right? They all are. Everyone is. Technology, everything moves faster, right? Never is anyone going to do 40 years in the same job. It'll never happen again, right? Like the guy who was, Willie Loman was a salesman selling his shit the same way he had for 40 years. That doesn't exist anymore, man. You will have to adjust and adapt and overcome throughout your career because technology moves so fast right now that you're going to have to change. Did you really think we'd be sitting here doing a stream like this?
I couldn't even imagine it, but it's totally different. And I'll say maybe 8-10 years ago, as far back, as podcast started, and when I first looked at it, I was like, it's kind of lame. It's people who maybe aren't that talented, but there's immensely talented people. They're carving their own way. They're doing their own advertising. So who am I to look at?
I agree.
Whatever you think about Bill Simmons and what a dickhead he is, and highbrow guy, or if you don't like Joe Rogan, or you don't like Dan Le Batard, he's got 10 different shows under his network podcast. Technology's changed. People want stuff on demand. They, hey, guess what? Everyone's not up at 10:30 at night Pacific, or in your case, 12:30 to watch. You got to give them what they want when they want it.
Yeah. No, and if you can't adjust and adapt, then you get left behind.
Yep. I'm not going to lower myself to do a video at 2:00 in the morning. Well, you may want to think about it.
Listen, somebody asked me to do something. If I can physically do it, I do it.
Yeah. You never say no.
I try to never say no. And if I say no, I say, all right, there's this guy at my station who can do it. If anyone ever calls me and wants me to do a hit wherever it is, if I can't do it, I will get them someone who can do it.
That's what I do. Actually, I go out of my way where I'm like, I'm not really the person to do it. So here's Adam. Here's this person. He's better on this. But you should never. Yeah, I mean, this is inside baseball stuff, but you should never say no. And I've seen more of that around the business in recent years. And I'll just tell people again, I'm not going to name people, but they're leaning on this crutch or that crutch as to why they can't do it. Their company says they can't do it. The world is shrinking, dudes.
Yeah.
Dudettes, we're all going to need connections and jobs, and the way I worked it, 25 years ago to get into this, I'm probably gonna have to work it again, and so are you. So be careful.
Yeah, no shit.
Right.
If you don't, hey, listen, anyone that while you're going up the ladder, you're shit to, they're gonna kick you when you're falling down it.
Yeah. Last two comments. People keep asking about Adam Hill. He is in Mexico. He came on with us last night, but come on. I told him before he went, I'm like, dude, you're not dialing in. You need to be annihilated when the show is on, every night. He's at all inclusive. He's giving out, all his tips and stuff. So I'm sure he's fried right now. The good one to close on, and I don't even know if you have an answer to this, because I've never really sat there and tried to eavesdrop on Jim Rome at Radio Row, and I don't know him. I've kind of always wondered what he's like away from his show. I've heard he's cool. He's got to be a laid back personality right off the air.
Gottlieb and I talked about him because Doug filled in on his show once or twice, and he had nothing but kind things to say about the guy. I'm with you. I don't know him. I do think he's a recluse. Not a recluse, but a private guy. That's not fair because recluse comes across as negative. I've never been around him. I don't really know people that have. And but I think he's clearly a private guy because, you don't ever see him on TMZ, right? And you talk about people.
By the way, I'm not saying this is the wrong thing to do because I actually think it works for a lot of people, but much of what we see now is people are trying to help their brand on social media is a lot of, this and pictures and experience. Again, it's probably the right thing to do. I don't know where.
Do it.
I have no idea where Rome is on social media. Like I have no clue. I get the sense he's not a guy taking pictures with celebrities and, putting pictures up of the drink he's got that night and anything like that.
He strikes me as a guy who manages his money well,
Yep.
and he's going to keep taking the check as long as they give it to him, but he doesn't have to have the check. And so he's going to do what he wants to do, and more power to you. He's an iconic figure in this business, and it wouldn't be what it is without him. Again, we do our shows different. There are things that he does that we would never do, and there are things we do he'd never do. But without Jim Rome, the business wouldn't be where it is. He's an iconic figure. And I'll say this, the one thing I've noticed is anyone who just shits on people in the business and can't recognize, like the guy who's like, you hear a guy who tells you like the 3 most successful people in an industry suck, get away from that guy because he's a moron. Like if you don't like what they do, you got to take the time to figure out why they've been successful doing what it is, so you at least understand it and can use that in taking yourself to where you want to go, right? You don't have to do Jim Rome's show. There are a number of people in this industry who spent a lot of years just doing a knockoff of his show, right? But you better understand what Jim Rome's done and why he's been a success, and you better respect his success.
Why would you look at the most successful people, those guys who set themselves up for life, and then go, well, they're no good, or I don't want to do that. Like, you may want to do that. I'm not saying copy him. They did something right. You don't have to copy Jim, but he did something right that you probably haven't achieved that. You're probably not doing it right. So you should always be looking at how the best have done it and at least pick something from them.
Well, and I said I do my show my way, and I'll ride that as far as it'll take me. But there is an element. Comedians will tell you, they come off the stage and they go, "Listen, nice, yeah, I'll be all right. I'll make it. I got one more day and then 5 days off."
If Soren's all sluggish an hour 4 tomorrow, you'd be like, "Man,
yeah.
The video you did, a stupid video with that idiot in Vegas."
But I lost my train of thought now. You
did.
Blew me up. I was going somewhere.
I know. I jumped in on you.
Shit.
We were doing Rome. We were doing take the example, run with it. Don't be a hater. That's a shame. That's what I do. That's my downfall. I got to learn this.
Comics will tell you, they come off stage and the comic in front of you says, "Oh, the audience sucks. All they want are dick and fart jokes." You know what? You're paid to make them laugh and keep them drinking. So give them dick and fart jokes, right? You got to read the room, right? And that's part of it. And like Jim Rome read the room, right? So maybe you can find a different room and you can read that room and they'll do your thing. But no matter what it is, and I don't care if you're a salesperson, read the room. You're selling your widgets and you're trying to sell them 100 and he's like, "I only want 10. And fucking sell them 10 and go on down the road and find 90 more to sell someplace else. Reading the room is a big part of it, and that guy could read the room.
All right, Soren, appreciate it. Everyone on the chat watching tonight, we appreciate it. If you don't comment, make sure you comment down the road. We want it to be as interactive as possible, and tell everyone who's watching tonight. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and now Twitch, which we'll see how Twitch works out. We've gotten a lot of comments already like, "That's just for video games." No, it's not. No, it's not. I've seen a couple of sports talkers out there, and we're going to connect with the young kids out there. So spread the